Welcome to Module 205I on diagrams. Being able to interpret the information found in drawings and diagrams helps us understand our projects and the equipment that we work with. Knowing what type of drawings are available to us is also important when applying the information or when troubleshooting equipment. This module has three objectives that we're going to deal with two videos. The first video is to identify common terms and symbols. The second video is all about the electrical drawings, both single line diagrams and schematic diagrams. We're going to start by looking at a lot of the common terms and symbology used in drawings. The point of having a drawing is to be able to communicate ideas without having to use a lot of different words, which means our drawings are very heavily dependent on symbolism. Each different type of drawing has a different symbol that means a different thing. It's important for us to be able to locate and understand the legend, which are found on most of the prints. Symbols are not always standardized, so legends come in handy on each and every job to let us know what the designer is thinking to represent. Here we have the legend for the Verbracken Library at the Medicine Hat College. If we look through this schedule, we can see what each and every single one of these symbols are supposed to mean on the drawing. And then when we see the symbol on the drawing, we can recognize it as the item that we're looking for. Using legends takes a little bit of practice, so I'm going to give you that practice now. I'm going to give you certain things to look for. What I want you to do is pause the video, find what I'm looking for, and then resume the video again. The first thing I want you to find is the fire alarm smoke detector. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you're ready, continue on. Here is the fire alarm smoke detector. It's a hexagon shape, half filled in. The next thing I want you to find is the double-faced exit sign. Pause the video and find that symbol. Here is the double-faced exit sign. You'll notice that like things are grouped inside the legend, so all my exit sign symbols are together within the legend. The next item I want you to look for is the 2x4 fluorescent light fixture. Here is the 2x4 fluorescent light fixture. You'll notice it has an AA in the corner. This denotes the fixture type, and we would find this fixture in the lighting schedule to tell us which light fixture should go where within the building. The last thing I want you to find is the fire alarm pull station. Here is a fire alarm pull station. Now, since this is for the fire alarm, it should have been in the same area that we have the smoke detector, which you can see directly below it. All these like things will be grouped together on the legend. When it comes to our electrical schematics, we also have a number of different symbols that we have to get used to. The symbols that we see on a schematic might be different than symbols that we see on a drawing or even on a wiring diagram. Each different type of drawing will have its own symbologies. You have to remember that in an electrical symbol on a schematic, it's always shown without any force applied. That means no one's pressing a button, there is no heat and no pressure, there is no wind, no nothing inside the system. We always treat it as an empty system. Even in the same set of drawings, we can have different symbols for the same items, such as my architectural schematic symbols will be different from my electrical schematic symbols. So be aware of the difference and know how to identify things. Beyond just symbols, drawings often have technical terms on them as well. You have to keep in mind that the terms that we use in the field are more like slang terms rather than true technical terms. So we have to be careful on what we're reading and making sure that we're understanding what it is. On the screen, you see a whole bunch of different slang terms that could be used in the field. See if you can figure out what those slang terms mean, and I'll give you the answer in just a moment. Pause the video if you'd like. Here are the technical terms that go with the slang term. A plug is a receptacle, a pancake is a half-inch round box, a wire biter is an electrician. Some other technical terms that we need to know is what a benchmark is. The benchmark is the reference elevation that we find on the drawing, and we have two different benchmarks that we work with. The first one is called the geodetic benchmark, and what this is the reference of where the building sits in respect to sea level. We can use the geodetic elevation in order to determine where our house is according to our neighbors and what kind of slope should we have in between the two houses. The other type of elevation that we have is called the construction elevation, and it uses the top of the main floor as the reference, and this reference is written as 100 meters. This is how we can discover what the elevation around our house is like. If you notice, on the right-hand side of the page, there's a box with a number inside it, and that box has the number 99.510. That is in relationship to the main floor. That is the elevation at the back of the house. So that elevation is going to be 0.49 meters below the top of the main floor. At the front of the house on the left-hand side, we also see another box with 99.350. By comparing those two numbers, I can see that my front elevation on the left side is going to be lower than my back elevation on the right side, and both of them are obviously lower than my main floor elevation. Another technical term that you should be aware of is grid lines. Grid lines are used on a lot of commercial drawings, however, you won't find them as much on residential drawings. The purpose of the grid line is to find a common reference point between floors. So if I wanted to run a conduit from the basement to an upper floor, I can look at the grid lines on each level of the floor and determine if there's any walls that line up together for me to run that conduit through. Beyond electrical terminology and print terminology, I also need to be aware of technical terms that other people use within the trade. Things like fire stop, which is the fire barrier between two areas of the same building. And that's important to us because as we run conduit through different walls, some of those walls are fire partitions and they need to maintain that fire stop, which means we need to re-caulk our holes to make sure that we don't have any fire penetration from one area to the other. Other construction terminology that we should be aware of are what forms and footings are. Forms are what concrete is poured into in order to create a foundation, and the footing is the very base of the foundation. The foundation walls would go directly on top of the footings to support the entire structure. On top of the foundation, we'd find joists, plates, studs, the subfloor, and above them are beams and headers. Some of these are structural components, which we cannot drill through, and it's important to us to understand and identify which of these are structural components that we cannot affect, and which of these can we go through without causing any injury to the building. You've now reached the end of part 1 of 205I. Make sure you are reviewing the symbology and the terminologies inside this section. Then return to Blackboard, do the knowledge check, and you can continue on to 205I part 2.